Initially, I wanted to call this video 3 hypnotic words that you need right now, and the funny thing would have been that the 3 words in capital letters in the title were hypnotic words you can use in each of your sentences, but then I thought again and thought about giving you some more value out of this. So those are 3 hypnotic phrases, not just the words in the title right here, but 3 hypnotic phrases you can use every day whenever you will want to influence others in a healthy, positive, and ethical way, of course. So without further ado, the first one is become aware. For the little story, for those of you who don't know how YouTube works, I have in the analytics in the dashboard some graphs, and I know at which moment of a video the attention of people spikes, either because they hit pause or because they stop watching something else on the side. You know, YouTube can track what you do in very deep and meaningful ways. And whenever I use a command like that in one of my videos, like become aware or stop and listen now, and whenever that person stopped and noticed what was happening in front of them right now, you know, whenever I use those commands, the attention of people spikes, even on the graph. If even a dumb robot can analyze that, whereas the robot of YouTube did not see you directly, but if it can catch that, it is definitely a clear sign whenever you use commands to catch people's attention, they just pay more attention to what you say and their mind will be more open for anything you say next. So when I say become aware, it is a light version of stop and listen now, but stop and listen is a pretty direct confrontational thing. Become aware is lighter, it is more caressing your mind. If you don't want to listen to me immediately right now, it will still kind of catch a part of your attention even without you knowing sometimes. Become aware is basically a transformational verb coming from the Milton model. You have become, which will transform any, linguistically speaking, it will transform any bad, negative connotation, assumption the person might have about a concept. For example, anyone might say, I hate this type of music. Whoa, pretty big. And if you love the type of music that person hates, that's a tough conversation, isn't it? However, if you can say, oh, before that I was like you, I also hated that type of music. And today I have become much more open to this because I noticed this band and that singer and that songwriter. And no matter who you mention, we don't care. The point is become. I have become. Become will linguistically transform the representations, or will help to transform the representation someone might have about a concept, about an idea, about a belief, about anything. So when you use become, it helps transforming the perception someone has about something you want to convince them about. And aware is an activation verb, again from the Milton model, that will catch their attention. Aware, focused, deeply visualizing right here. All of those are helping their brain to reconnect with the present moment because, especially in today's society, most people don't really listen to what you say. They're just inside their own head thinking about the last stupid thing they saw on TikTok. The second phrase right here is the most effective way to. Pause for a moment and notice what's happening here. The most effective way. First of all, the most compared to what? If I say the most or the best, I need to have a comparison in mind. Otherwise, I could not know what is better compared to what. I am better than you. According to which standards? Or you are better than me. According to which standards? So the most effective is what we call a deletion. We are removing information from the sentence and the brain of the person listening to you has to fill in the blanks, even unconsciously, just to figure out what the hell you're talking about. So the most effective is unclear about what am I comparing to. If I say the most effective way of using hypnosis is to use my method. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but if I use that sentence in the middle of many other things, that becomes a suggestion that will sink in your brain. Even if you were not ready to believe that first of all, but the fact that I said the most effective, you are somehow compelled to believe it is the case because I did not specify compared to what. And the compared to what, your brain has to form an idea of there must be something else that is less good. If he says the most effective way and I don't know what he's comparing to, there must be something he is comparing to. So their brain intuitively will make a representation of what I could be comparing to. So maybe in your brain something will emerge as a very bad hypnotist who could not hypnotize, and that way you will make sense of the sentence I just said. Now, obviously, if there is zero rapport between you and me, or if you think I am a scammer, obviously you won't believe that anyway. But as long as there is enough rapport that you trust me at least a little bit, that sentence will just go by naturally. And the third one that you could use as soon as today is a wise person told me. Of course, you may be aware of the concept of the quote, quoting somebody else from the Milton model, but it is also a very common strategy for any person using rhetoric and using persuasion in any shape or form. To quote somebody else removes or reduces at least the resistance, the potential resistance of somebody listening to you. Because when you say something in your own name, unless you are yourself a respected authority about the topic you talk about, in that case, people will just nod their head yes. But if you are not a recognized authority and you say something in your own name, even worse if you say something political, but even without that, people might just argue and say, no, you're wrong, and I don't trust you, I don't believe you. However, if I quote somebody else, curiously, you know what? 3 days ago, I read a book about X or Y, and he was saying that blah, blah, blah. Now it is more difficult to argue because, first of all, you may not know that author, you may not know that book, you may not know how recognized or not that author is that I just quote. So, linguistically, cognitively, it is much more difficult to resist and argue against this. So using a quote to talk about something you would like the person to believe into, in a therapy session, like it is possible for you to heal that pain extremely fast. If I say that in my own name, pretty difficult. But if I say, curiously, I saw a documentary on Netflix 1 year ago, I don't know if it is still on the platform, but in that documentary, there were some of the most important, most effective, most intelligent scientists, doctors, PhD in the world, and they were all saying that cancer can be healed faster than expected. If and only if the person believes in this and this and that, and then I will just elaborate on whatever I want the person to believe to heal faster and get better. I use a quote from something else, and it does not even need to be verified or valid, unless you go really deep into medical treatment, then yes, or if you go into political things or religious beliefs. Be careful with that. I would say really investigate your sources before you quote anything. But if it is just in a therapy session to help the person get some courage in their life again and some, getting more motivated about and more enthusiastic about, yes, I can get better, why not just quote your grandpa, quote your uncle, quote your cousin, quote your best friend when you were a child? Erickson used to do that all day long. He was quoting his friend Charlie or his friend Paul, or I think he had a specific name for that, for this guy, somebody who maybe never existed or who existed but to whom all those things did not happen, because Erickson basically had this friend to whom everything happened, because he was always using that friend, that old friend, to invent metaphors or stories that the person will be able to match their life onto. So a wise person told me might be a simplistic way of using that suggestion, that command, and even better if you can identify prior to this any real source of authority that the person you are talking to is seeing as a source of authority. Any guru, teacher, scientist, whatever, who is in the eyes of your interlocutor an actual source of authority. If you can identify that and then look up for things that person said, maybe even rearranging, sometimes reframing what they said, but using a base of reality into this, guess what? People will just believe you without resisting anymore. Actually, one time I used that, not even quoting a specific person, but I was talking about hypnosis in the gym like 8 years ago to some random gym somewhere, and there was a guy who had seen a documentary about hypnosis on athletes, that they could control the cortisol, or I'm not sure which chemical in the brain could be altered because of hypnosis on top-level athletes. And we had a biologist in the room, in the gym somewhere. this biologist was just stuck-minded, like, oh, it's impossible, like almost as if we were all a dumb piece of shit and he was so superior. And I questioned him, like, what do you know about that? But it's impossible because biological. He was giving me some random truth, absolute truth about how the human body works, and that hypnosis could never alter that. And I said, funny enough, you have been studying here in this city, right? Yes, me too. Funny enough, if you have been studying here in science, it means you have been taught the same thing I have been taught, which is that any scientific discovery can only be verified only until we prove its contrary, its opposite, until we prove it is untrue. Any scientific truth is true only until we prove it is untrue. And the problem was that we were coming from the same university, so basically we had been told the same thing. And he was forced to shut up once and for all, because he was like, yeah, you're right, you're right. The fact I quote something else is very often, if not all the time, shutting down the critical mind, because it comes from a superior source of authority if you have been doing it correctly, and people just argue much less. Now, if you want to develop your skills with all of that, I have prepared a method in 7 days so that you can learn each step at a time, one step at a time, all those Milton model patterns, going from the really simplest one ever to the most difficult. So you need to start. Please start at day one. I know people are just don't want to listen and to go right away. Maybe you can make a difference and start from day one and go one step at a time and slowly developing your skills in a very intelligent way, because at each day of this method down below, I have given exercises. Simple ones, nothing like you have to go talk to people, just yourself in front of your laptop or something to write down. You will have simple language patterns to create by yourself so that you automate this language. It is nice to learn about this passively without doing anything. My encouragement, what I would like to encourage people to do, would be to actually use it. And to use it, you need to automate language beforehand, before you use it in real. Because if you try to think about all of those while being in a conversation and having to understand the content of the words that are being said, that is way too much mental work. But if you use that method and you notice one step at a time how you could use your own embedded commands and your own topics of conversation with this language pattern, with that language pattern, you will just automate that into your own head and it will be ready for when you need it again. At the end of the program, you have 35 patterns, because I have put 5 per category. With those 35 patterns that belong to you, you can use them in any situation where you want to persuade others. When you want to be more influential, more persuasive, it will just be part of who you are, instead of being a tool you try to use but that you don't really know how to use. So it is down below in the description. I hope you will make the greatest choice ever, and I tell you, see you soon in the next video.